I've been here before. This is the weekly show where every week I take a deeper look at Earth, the universe, and beyond and explore what's been going on in this week. So we are live. Exciting, awesome. I'm going to give everyone a minute or so to log on and join us so that they don't miss any of the exciting action. For those of you who are here already, who are early to Space Chat, feel free to shout out in the comments below and let me know what's been exciting you in space recently. Have you been following what's been going on this week? Be be warned, this has been an especially crazy week in space. So for those of you following it, you may already know kind of what's been going on, but I'm excited to share a bit more about what that's been like for everyone here. So again, I'm just going to give everyone about 30 seconds or so to log on before I begin, and we will be off to the races. So it's very nice to see all of you. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I think it is time. You've given everyone about, let's see, it's been about 1 minute. I think that's a good amount of time. So, to all of you that have already been here or are here for the first time, I'm Chelsea and welcome to Space Chat. This is a weekly show where I explore Earth, the universe, and beyond and keep you in the loop with what's new in space. And answer your questions. We get to chat live. So it has been a tumultuous week in space, with Boeing delaying its second uncrewed Starliner launch, which was set to lift off today. But a misbehaving Russian space module changed those plans. Also, this week, China's Zhurong Mars rover started exploring south. Scientists think that space tourism could be detrimental to Earth's climate. And in a wild new study, researchers think that Mars' ancient lakes could possibly just be frozen clay. So, so welcome to Space Chat. Now, if you've been here before, you know how it works. If you have not, in Space Chat, I take a little bit of time and I tell you what's new, what's going on in space. And then I turn it over to you and I answer your questions. So at any time during Space Chat, you can drop your questions down into the comments below or always shout us out over social media. And I always try to get through as many of them as possible. And some that I do not get, sometimes I'm able to answer later over social media or in future episodes. So please do not hesitate. There are no stupid questions. I love hearing all of your curiosities. So without further ado, let's explore what's new in space. So, I kind of gave it away, but the biggest bombshell in space this past week was definitely, yesterday's Russian space module debacle that ended up delaying Boeing's Starliner launch to next week. So what happened was yesterday morning, Russia's space agency Roscosmos had its Nauka module autonomously dock with the International Space Station. Now, Nauka, which was designed to be Russia's primary research module, is the first Russian space module to launch in 11 years and was in development for even longer than that, well over a decade. But yesterday, it had a bit of a bumpy start. After docking, it encountered some pretty serious issues. Just 3 hours after docking with the space station, two cosmonauts went to open the hatch between the module that they were in, the Zvezda module, and the new Nauka module. But at that time, Nauka unexpectedly and accidentally fired its thrusters, pushing the station out of position and causing it to lose what is called attitude control, basically pushing it out of its usual position, kind of on a tilt. 45 degrees, a situation that is actually quite rare and is fairly alarming. Don't want to push the space station out of its normal tilt. I think that goes without saying. Now, in a call yesterday, NASA officials actually told me directly that there was no immediate danger to the 7 astronauts on board the station currently. In fact, it was Joel Montalbano who told me, he said, there was no immediate danger at any time to the crew. Obviously, when you have a loss of attitude control, that's something you want to address right away, but the crew was never in any immediate emergency or anything like that. He said, you ask the crew, hey, did the space station shake or anything like that? And the response was negative. He also added that they have not noticed any damage to the space station as of yet. But of course, they are still very closely monitoring the situation. Also, after the accidental thruster firing that caused this whole thing, NASA did reassure that the module would not be able to fire again. And thankfully, with some careful maneuvering from other modules, kind of pushing things back into place, they were able to return to the space station's typical or normal configuration or attitude after it got pushed. So things are fairly stable, but it was quite a crazy day yesterday. But again, as I said, the situation is very out of the ordinary. So both NASA and Roscosmos are continuing to very closely monitor the situation along with the astronauts on board to make sure that everything remains stable and that everything and everyone on board are okay. Roscosmos actually issued their own statement today. They said, due to a short-term software failure, a direct command was mistakenly implemented to turn on the module's engines for withdrawal, which led to some modification of the orientation of the complex. Now, because this was an unexpected event, Boeing and NASA did decide to delay Boeing's Starliner launch, which was set to take place today, this afternoon, Eastern Time. NASA wrote, NASA and Boeing have decided to stand down from Friday's launch attempt of the agency's Orbital Flight Test 2 mission. The move allows the International Space Station team time to continue working checkouts of the newly arrived Roscosmos Nauka module and to ensure the station will be ready for Starliner's arrival. Essentially, they didn't want to launch something else to dock with the space station, while the last thing that just docked yesterday pushed the station and is creating kind of a tricky situation, to put it lightly. Starliner is set to launch no sooner than August 3rd at 1:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, a bit of background information on what Starliner is or why it's launching. Not going to gloss over that, don't worry. Starliner is Boeing's astronaut taxi, so to speak. Like how SpaceX has its Crew Dragon vehicle that carries astronauts to and from the space station. This is Boeing's version, and both companies developed and built their spacecraft with support and as part of NASA's Commercial Crew program. Now, Starliner did make a previous uncrewed flight test called OFT-1 in December of 2019. However, and I was actually there in person for that launch. It was kind of a crazy night. There were quite a few anomalies and issues with the launch that caused the craft to enter the wrong orbit, making it unable to dock with the space station and make an early, unplanned reentry and landing back on Earth. So instead of just pushing right along and sending up astronauts next, Boeing and NASA did an intense review of the spacecraft, and Boeing made a lot of changes and fixes to the software and hardware on board, addressing all of NASA's concerns. So this flight that's coming up now on Tuesday is called OFT-2, and it's basically round 2, the follow-up to this previously uncrewed flight test. And with the success of this flight, which will carry Starliner to the space station and back, Boeing will be able to start launching crews of astronauts to and from the space station using Starliner. Now, moving on a bit from Starliner and Nauka, if you're sick of hearing about them already, I understand. Blue Origin is back in the headlines today as they were denied. Just now, actually, it was just a few moments ago, after they and Dynetics, the other company that was also in the running, protested NASA's decision to only pick SpaceX's Starship for the human moon lander contest. The 3 companies were in the running to get the contract to build the human moon lander. And while people expected NASA to choose 2 companies to fuel competition, to have a backup just in case, NASA actually decided to only choose SpaceX, something that the other companies did not seem too happy with. And so recently, Blue Origin essentially propositioned NASA to reverse this change and include another one of the companies and reconsider them. However, NASA has officially decided to continue on with just SpaceX and SpaceX's Starship vehicle. Also this week, China's Zhurong Mars rover has been busy exploring the red planet and recently has been scoping out dunes while journeying south. It even went and visited its own parachute that helped it to land. Also this week, scientists have begun expressing concern about the impact that space tourism with, companies like Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic build their space tourism programs, the impact that space tourism could have on Earth's atmosphere and ultimately climate change. There is rising concern that more launches in general gas emissions to our planet's atmosphere. Now, while the different companies have different ways that they're trying to stay green in some way, with Virgin Galactic, its Unity soot behind. And any rocket or any launch that burns hydrocarbons will, of course, generate soot, which is a major pollutant for our atmosphere. Now, Blue Origin's BE3 engine actually uses a liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen fuel, which scientists think, at least so far, might have a lesser environmental impact. However, there is still much to be studied and understood about the different effects and impacts of different types of rockets, different missions. How do they realistically impact our atmosphere and our climate over time? Because as we continue to have more and more launches going to space, that is going to be something extremely important to consider. We can't just launch to space willy-nilly without considering our home planet. We want to keep living here. I do. And so that is something that scientists are starting to take very seriously. Also, lastly, from this week, researchers dropped a major science bombshell with a brand new study about Mars. Previously, scientists have seen bright reflex under the surface of Mars' south pole, and they've thought that this could be underground lakes. However, according to a new study, researchers studying the area actually think that it's possible that this isn't a secret underground lake at all, but rather frozen clay deposits, and that the frozen clay is actually what's causing that bright reflection and not some type of liquid underneath the surface. Now, this has yet to be fully confirmed, but it would certainly change our view of the red planet quite significantly. However, whether or not this is confirmed, it does not mean that there is not water currently on Mars or other ice, or that in ancient times there has not been water on Mars. This does not upend that fact or any of that research, but it would quite dramatically change our view of at least Mars' south pole. So, taking a deep breath, that's all that's been happening in space this week. Well, that's just a brief snapshot. I could go on for hours, but we all have better things to do. So that's a little bit about what's been going on in space. Now we get to my favorite part of Space Chat, where I hand it over to you and answer your questions. So if you have not yet gotten the chance to ask a question about what's new in space this week, anything I mentioned, or really anything about space flight, science in general, ask away. As long as it's appropriate, I'll answer it. So I'm going to give everyone a second or two while I take a little sip of water. Hydration is key. And let me get into your questions. All right. Scrolling through some of these questions. All right. All right, Gabriel, is Bezos back yet? Bezos is back. He was only floating in what we refer to as 0G for about 4 minutes. He returned that afternoon pretty quickly. So yes, he is back on Earth. But for those brief few moments, Jeff Bezos was no longer the richest man on Earth because he was not on Earth. So sorry about that. Ronald says, happy to see you telling us what's going on with the ISS. I appreciate your appreciation. Yeah, it was a bit, you may have seen headlines or things pop up that seemed concerning. And yes, yesterday was definitely surprising for all of us. We were all watching Nauka dock autonomously. And I mean, Nauka has been a module, I think probably some 13 plus, probably more than that, years in the making, in development and building. And so to see those issues after docking, especially with 7 astronauts on board, was fairly concerning. However, it does appear that the situation is under control. They were very quickly able to push the space station back into its correct attitude or configuration. And no, everyone seems all right. Everyone seems okay. It was a little scary for a second, but things seem to be fairly stable at the moment. And NASA is leaving no stone unturned to the surprise of nobody. All right. Eugen, is Russia trying to destroy the space station? No. Russia cares very deeply about the Nauka module, And I mean, Russia has had many modules on the space station. They even had their own space station, Mir. And this has been such a long time in the making. I'm sure they are equally very stressed out, to put it that way, about the situation and about ensuring the safety of the NASA astronauts and cosmonauts and other astronauts on board, as well as the safety of their module, which they've worked so hard on. Pinky asks, are you saying loss of attitude or altitude? It's attitude. So it might be kind of crazy. Like, does the space station have a bad attitude? It sounds kind of silly. But by loss of attitude, it basically means that the space station has tilted. So it tilted maybe about like 45 degrees, if I'm remembering correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. I will double check that in a couple moments. But it didn't lose altitude. It got pushed and kind of just shifted out of its usual position. But it didn't drop. It didn't drop out of orbit or anything crazy like that. It just kind of pushed a little bit. Marvel, I'm not going to tell you where I live. Dave, thank you very much. All right. Ooh, interesting. Mark, I'm assuming you're writing from the UK. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mark says, the UK is about to start launching satellites next year from Unston, Scotland. Does this mean they'll be able to offer different orbits to other countries? I'm not sure what you mean by different orbits. However, there are launch companies and rocket companies popping up all over the world. And yes, including in the UK. And so what that means is with more companies launching satellites, they can offer services to not just other companies who want to launch their satellites, but yes, other countries. They can say, hey, you've got scientists working on satellites. You've got students working on CubeSats, and we can launch them for you at a great price. So there's a lot of competition in that sphere right now, but it's exciting to see other countries, other nations getting involved with new companies, new launch sites. It's exciting. It's interesting. Gary, are UFOs real? I love this question. I get it a lot. Unidentified flying objects are totally real, but they're unidentified. All that UFO means is that we see something in the sky and we don't know what it is. So those reports, yes, the fact that there is something in the sky that is unidentified to date is real. Are all UFOs aliens? Are any of them aliens? There is not yet any information to prove or show that any UFOs ever spotted have been aliens. And humans have yet to find concrete evidence of life beyond Earth. But we're trying. People often say, which gives me a rise, which makes me kind of mad and kind of laugh, that NASA's hiding alien information from us. I promise you, if NASA found something out about aliens, they would be shouting it from the rooftops. They would get so much support and funding. People would be so excited. And in fact, today, last year, it's been exactly 1 year today since they launched their Perseverance rover to Mars. And Perseverance was actually sent to Mars with the explicit intent to search for signs of ancient extraterrestrial life. So we are actively looking for it, but interesting question. All right. Someone asks on YouTube, when will Beetlejuice explode? I don't know. Beetlejuice has been dimming over time, kind of unexpectedly the last couple years, but studies have come out that have shown that Beetlejuice, which is a star, a very bright star typically, so it was strange when we started to see it dimming, isn't dimming because it's about to explode. It's actually about a middle-aged star. It's a little older, but it's got some life still in it. There were reasons put out there. Scientists, I think, at least right now, pretty much agree that Beetlejuice is not on the verge of supernova. All right, let's see. All right, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Michael, are we ever going to visit Uranus? If you mean like landing people or landing probes on the planet, I do see that happening in, some year, in some future year. I don't know when that might be, if ever. But I mean, we continue to explore our solar system. We've had probes go out technically beyond our solar system. We've had probes leave our solar system, go all the way past. So it is definitely not out of the question to send probes out as far as Uranus. That is within our technological grasp. If you're a scientist, put together a proposal for a spacecraft to visit Uranus, and See what happens. Okay, Greg, what is the date or year of a hopeful next crewed moon landing by any country? So, there are different people trying to return humans to the moon, land humans on the moon. Right now, NASA's Artemis program does seem to be the most active in trying to make this happen. Now, NASA's plan has been, with their Artemis 3 mission, to land humans on the moon's surface by 2024. Now, that's about 2.5 years away. That's pretty soon. However, yet they have not formally changed that date, but we'll see. 2024 is kind of the working date, but I'm eager to see when this actually happens. I'm eager to see humans return to the moon's surface. All right, Todd, do you believe in hollow earth theory? I think I just saw that in a Godzilla movie. I don't know much about hollow earth theory. I do not personally believe in it, but I'd love to read more. Let's see. Gotcha. Sailing Someday on YouTube said, please explain what you said about NASA sticking to only SpaceX. Had the GAO ruled? They basically responded to Blue Origin's open letter and to their explicit request to reconsider. And the GAO has, it seems, formally ruled to stick only with SpaceX when it comes to building the next moon lander. Whether they continue to stick with this or, recant and add someone else in there as a backup option has yet to be seen. But it does seem that they are really sticking with just SpaceX and SpaceX's Starship. All right. Ooh, people love asking about extraterrestrial life. It's fun, I know. Richard's looking for Mars landing pods. I don't have any. I'm sorry, Richard. Okay. Jamie, do we really need spaceship if we're made from the same particles as the cosmos? I mean, if you break everything down to subatomic particles, it's all the same. It's all the same bits and pieces, a big soup of particles and subatomic particles, etc. However, when those particles get together and make a living creature, that living creature depends on things. We're humans. We need oxygen. We need water. We need food. And humans cannot survive in the vacuum of space alone. So, unfortunately, we cannot just venture out into the vacuum of space and survive, even though if you break everything down, we're kind of all the same bits and pieces in some way or another. Gary, did they see UFOs at the space station? Not that I'm aware of, but you could ask them. Let's see. Eric, did NASA give any explanation as to why they were only supporting SpaceX for the moon mission? I haven't read the in-depth GAO report as of yet because it literally just came out. But originally, NASA did give a number of reasons as to why they chose only SpaceX instead of SpaceX and a backup option for building the moon lander. SpaceX offered it to them at a very competitive price. They offered Starship, which SpaceX has already been testing for quite some time compared to the planned spacecraft by the two other companies. And they see a lot less risk in choosing SpaceX. So they see a lot less risk, a lot more testing, and a competitive price. So I think those were three of some of the main reasons that NASA ended up going with SpaceX originally, and it seems that they are sticking to their guns. All right, YouTube. Someone asks, Factor Fiction asks, is a Muammar a UFO? Sorry, it isn't. They actually tested it. For those who don't know, a Muammar was a cigar-shaped rock, the first ever interstellar object we detected in our solar system and confirmed. It flew in from another solar system. It ended up flying back out. But while it was here, people were like, that's a weird looking rock. Looks like a giant cigar out in the cosmos. Very strange. It's got to be an alien ship or something. And actually, scientists, they essentially sent radio waves and they blasted radio waves at it to see what would come back. To see what would bounce back, to see if there might be anything in the composition of the rock that might indicate that there is in any way a connection to extraterrestrial life in any way, shape, or form. And what they determined is most likely a Muammar is just a regular old asteroid. Very cool, a very strangely shaped, very interesting interplanetary interloping asteroid. But interesting question. Man, you guys have some interesting ones today. Gary, will we ever be able to travel at the speed of light and faster? I'm not sure if you mean we as in humans or creating a spacecraft that can. That's interesting. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what you mean by your question, so I'm gonna leave it open-ended. Let's see. Ooh, Mark's wondering what's new with space weather this week. I'm not sure if there have been any storms this week. There haven't been any that I've heard of. Usually, solar storms or space weather is only reported if it is fairly significant. And that's not to say that it doesn't happen all the time, but usually we only hear about it if it's kind of a big deal. Now, space storms can affect Earth. Now, space storms, as in solar storms, storms on the sun, are really different from storms here on Earth, but they can still affect us. Now, solar storms can actually interfere with our technology, our power grids, all kinds of strange technological things here on Earth, but only if they're very extreme. And scientists are continually trying to up our solar storm monitoring to basically get a better idea of when they're happening, to anticipate them, what causes them, so we can be prepared if a big solar storm is approaching. All right. On YouTube, Parsa asks, internet in space? Totally. The astronauts on the space station are on the internet. They are online. All right. And one last one. Gaming Nerd 353 asks, when do you think Starliner will carry crew to the ISS? If everything goes according to plan with the uncrewed launch next week, by the end of the year is the ultimate hopeful goal. So fingers crossed. Thank you all so much for your questions. This has been Space Chat. Join me again next Friday. And as always, stay tuned right here at space.com. And if you have a question that I didn't get to answer, that you'd like me to answer, or an idea for a future episode, something you'd like me to include, let me know in the comments below. Or you can always reach out to space.com